We're in
This is a
Nashville,
place,
Tennessee.
yeah, Nashville,
To start
Tennessee.
off, this is Nashville.
We're in the Meritt Mansion, a house that was built in the 1800s. And our studio, our old studio, was right across the street. And so we bought that studio and bought this mansion. And this is kind of a homecoming for us. This is the first time I've been in here since we sold it.
It's the studio we made Mechanical Bull in, is across the street.
We couldn't afford to each have mansions, so we bought one together. We wanted to kind of have something for ourselves, and this just happened to be part of it. And after we bought it, we would only actually use this one day a year. We would have a Halloween party here, which was pretty epic. So, I mean, we always had plans to do something with it. We didn't know what, but we knew every year at Halloween. So you'd have like all the Tennessee Titans show up and Nashville Preds. A lot of cool people, everyone dressed up. There was blood, fake blood everywhere.
We filled that tub up with fake blood, and I think the first time we filled it up, we obviously partied on Halloween, and then we would leave and we wouldn't come back here for like a year. So we came back a year later and we were like, oh man, we left the blood in like the tub, and it was really a mess.
Someone cleaned the bloody tub. But I think back in the day, I think maybe there was a battle, and I know there was a battle, a Civil War battle in Nashville, and I think this was a makeshift hospital or something at some point, which adds to the spookiness of Halloween. Well, when we first came over here and found the studio, it was a paint factory. It was this area was a little, you know, you didn't really see a lot of families, or, you know, at night there wasn't like people out really. And then when we bought, I think word of mouth started to spread, and then some other restaurants and stuff started to pop up. And then before you know it, you'd see like moms pushing strollers, and so it was like, you know.
It was nothing like it is today. And it was, I think it was like 2013, and every time we needed to rehearse, we would go to we'd have to rent like a soundstage and do rehearsals. And then it got to the point where we were like, we're spending so much money on a rehearsal space, let's just get our own place. How cool would that be? And so we searched and searched and searched, and yeah, we found this place. And then
we were house painters before the band, so the fact that it was a paint factory, that kind of spoke to us, and it was like, it makes sense. Maybe that's the.
And being in a neighborhood, there was always kind of a cloud of being too loud, and maybe one day they're going to shut us down and kick us out. So we would always look over here and see, you know, this is the closest house to us, and we knew people lived there. So when it did come for sale, that was also kind of a big reason why we bought over here, and then tried to buy up as much as we could. You know, it was very cheap.
For me and Nathan, when we first started, before the band was formed, Nashville was kind of a place that we knew if we wanted to get our foot in the door in the music industry, it was the closest place. We lived in Jackson, Tennessee, and so it was the closest place, you know, where we felt like we could somehow become songwriters or something, whatever it took to kind of start the process, because I'd already given like a cassette tape to the guy that was working the meat counter at the Kroger in Jackson, Tennessee, because I heard a rumor that he knew Joe Diffie's brother, which was a country singer, and that didn't pan out. So I was like, I guess we have to go to Nashville. But Nashville was, you know, was the town that we worked the hardest in to kind of make a name for ourselves, and was also the town that rejected us the most. So it was like one of those things where we felt like we never really were getting respect or getting a chance here. So we ended up going to New York, and it was the opposite. There were a lot of record deal offers, and a lot of people were interested in us. And so when we came back to town, we kind of like felt like we had accomplished something. And you know, Nashville was always going to be the place that you know, we called home. And I feel like we've started to get that respect these days.
But Nashville was a very nice reality check for us as well, because we would go to Europe and play for thousands and thousands of people. And then we would come home to Nashville, and our mom would be at baggage claim, waiting on and telling us how skinny we were, too skinny. and we needed to eat more, or we needed a haircut, or we needed. So for the longest, Nashville was where we came to get to be just normal and be ourselves and live our everyday lives. And then as our career kind of took off, but even still to this day, Nashville's a very good town to live in if you're an athlete, actress, musician, whatever. Everyone here's super chill. No one's really gonna, if anyone bugs you, it's someone that's moved here within the last, week, which
for
is
years
usually
people-
about 200,000 a week. at
For
this
years,
point.
people would say, like, how do you like living in Nashville? Like, is it a good place to live? And I'd be like, yeah, it's cool. Like, kind of got a small town feel, and it's a nice place to live and come home to after like being on the road.
Now we tell them stay
Definitely,
away.
we definitely don't say that anymore. I don't. It's not. It doesn't have that small town feel anymore, but it still is a nice place to live.
When you're first starting out in anything, you're kind of trying to find your voice or whatever it is. And so for us, it was like, well, before the band happened, before Jared had a bass, before we had called Matthew and said like, hey, come to town, we're gonna do something, we tried our hands at writing songs. And it was pretty quickly that we realized that the songs that we wanted to write weren't gonna get cut by country artists. And so we had to, do it ourselves. And that ended up being the sound that we have. It was always rock and roll. But, I do love old country songs. I love songwriting. I love the craft. And so to be able to combine that with loud guitars was something that I don't think this town was necessarily ready for yet.
I can remember I would get so hurt because I would come home, and any interview we did in Europe, anywhere, we would try to big up local Nashville bands. Like, Nashville's much more than a country music town. Like, there are other bands, and then we would come home and I would read in like the local papers, like those bands like talking shit about us because we had gotten big and they weren't. And I can remember for the longest, like, we are trying to break through so we can bring everybody else with us. And they viewed it more as y'all haven't paid your dues, like, how dare you, how blah, blah, blah. But even still to this day, we are very proud of Nashville, and I still try to big up Nashville music any chance I can.
I always thought it was funny. It's Music City, and it's just that main genre. I think we kind of helped make
Yeah,
it
but
Music City.
Bob Dylan, the Eagles, people like that came to
Hendrix.
town. Like, people came to
Neil
this town
Young.
because it is. I mean, if you're a music nerd, I used to tell bands, I'd be like, why are you trying to make it in Brooklyn or trying to make it in LA, or like everywhere you turn in this town, there's a studio. So you can go and make music for cheap, and if you need equipment, it's everywhere. So like, if you really are trying to make music, this is a great town for it. If you're trying to be cool, maybe this isn't the place. But now that's changed, now, when you go out, you see big name rock and rollers, and they live here now.
Is there any specific spot or person, like a venue or person kind of that really helped you out in that key time? And like, we could not have done it here if it were not for getting the shot at this place or with this person.
There was a big,
Exit In,
I would say
no, but
12th
even
and
before
Porter.
that.
12th and
12th and
Porter,
Porter.
yeah.
We know there's a
Or
person.
Slow Bar.
12th and Porter
12th
was
and Porter was the
like our
spot.
first big show. We did do like a little thing in a place called Slow Bar, which is now called Three Crow, and it's in East Nashville. But like, I remember feeling like we made it when we played 12th and Porter.
And it was
Yeah,
like
we would go there.
120 people. And we were like,
Oh, I was so nervous.
We would go there and watch other bands, not necessarily great bands, but like when they made it there, we'd be like, man, like they're doing better than us. And not a lot of those bands are around anymore. But as far as a person, Angelo Petralia, he was the first guy that we met in our journey as wannabe songwriters or whatever. And when we met with him, we were meeting with him to write a song, and it was like, maybe it was going to get cut by Faith Hill or Garth Brooks or something. And he instantly kind of leaned into the weirdness and almost like encouraged it. So it was, you know, we didn't feel like, oh, we're trying to fit into something. It was like, no, let's just get weirder, you know? And he was like an old rock dude from Boston. So he pushed us, and he would, you know, when we wanted something, a piece of equipment, he'd be like, all right, let's go to the shop. Let's go find you a guitar. Let's go find your little brother a bass. Let's.
He played Sticky Fingers for me for the first time ever. He would play vinyl for us that we had never heard, because the way we grew up, we weren't really exposed to
The
a lot
album or
of
the
rock
game?
music.
Yeah.
But he got to relive, like, he would get to watch us experience all this amazing music for the first time, and it was just like joyous for him to get to watch our faces, like, oh my, because he knew what was coming next, and then he would see our reaction to that.
He bought me my first bass, bought me my first amp, everything. Taught me how to play, like literally taught me how to play. I didn't know how to do it without him.
Well, we had our, this was about a year ago, when we were in Australia. New Zealand.
October 22.
October.
So there was conversation about our 20-year anniversary of our first album coming up, and it was like, what should we do? Should we go and cut a track and do a greatest hits and go have a tour and do the thing that everyone does? And it kind of scared me a little bit and made me go like, wait, whoa. It just seems like it came so quickly, like 20 years already. And I personally wasn't ready to kind of wave and you know, look back on the times. So it pushed me, and that tour that we were on, just seeing the crowd and just seeing, in a way, I feel like our fans, whenever we've hit a point in our career when maybe we are questioning ourselves and our future, I feel like I can see it on our fans' faces, and it's this look of encouragement of like, just come on guys, don't give up. Like, even though you're playing big places, sometimes it can feel like you kind of have peaked and that's it. And it's like, is this it? Is this all, you know? Not that I mean, we've accomplished more than we ever dreamed of, but you still kind of start to go like, oh man, I'm not ready yet, you know? And so, yeah, it inspired us to write, and to write. Once we started writing, it was just inspired writing, and it was just more and more, and like I really just fell in love with that process again. And oddly enough, I mean, all the music was written here in this town, and I will say that for the first time since the very beginning, I really fell in love with the craft of songwriting again, and storytelling, and trying to find a way to be weird again, and to like tell a good story, but then like have the moments that make you go like, you could have easily said something more palatable, but you chose to say something that's going to make people go like, huh? But yeah, so I think in a way this album's kind of like a bit of a homecoming for me personally.
The studio is always fun. You know, it's the funnest part of the job. You get to create, you get to start over. It's like a rebirth every time. And the touring is fun too, but it can get monotonous. You're kind of doing the same thing over and over and over. So we always try to have fun, but it did start to feel more like a job sometimes. You know, like we're hard on ourselves. We're harder on ourselves than anybody, and like can get a little bit dark in the studio at times. And it was definitely a different vibe this time, and just light and happy and positive. And so yeah, it was definitely fun.
Yeah, I feel like we met every obstacle with a positive way of looking at it and going like, oh, that's not working, cool. Got 5 more songs that I'm ready to try. So it's not like a thing where it's like, let's beat this thing over the head and try to make it work. And sometimes in our past, you know, we have kind of had songs that just weren't quite there, but we worked through it and we got it to a place where it's like, all right, yeah, that's good. But this was like one of those things, it's like, if it's not working, move on. Like, if it's great, we'll come back to it, you know? And we didn't really have to come back to anything, because it was just, like I say, we were just inspired. We were all we had a singular goal in mind, which is a pretty lofty goal, which it was greatness. It was simple as that. We were just like, we want to do something great.
In the past, sometimes it could take just one band member not liking an idea to, okay, that one's done, that one's gone. This record was more, every song that people were like, oh, I don't know, there was always at least one or two people that were like, no, this is a great song. Like, let's push through with this one, and if we finish it and we don't like it at the end, whatever, but let's at least give it the chance that it deserves. And that enabled us to just see the whole record through from start to finish, and not that end of the record like, oh man, I still wish we probably should have cut this one and that one, or swapped that one for that one. Like, there was none of that for me on this record.
He's exactly right. We came in with like, it was just like, try to be positive about everything, you know, and try things maybe you wouldn't have tried, or maybe you would have spoke up a little sooner in the past. So we just reminded each other constantly, like, stay positive, be positive, like, this is fun or whatever. It was really difficult for me being such a negative person, but I got through it.
How did Kid Harpoon and then the location, what is it, 40 miles from here in Franklin, facilitate that atmosphere and kind of help out that vibe?
Oh man, what a joy it was to work with him. And I'll be honest, we were hesitant going into it. We knew of him through relationships that we have, friends with Harry, and we know Florence and people like that throughout the years. And everyone had such a positive way of speaking about him. So we got the opportunity to meet him in London. He came to a show. We met him. We were like, oh, he's pretty cool. And then it was like, well, let's get him down. Let's maybe record a song with him, see if it goes right, or if it's the, you know. But by the time he came to town, we were already in this zone of like positive attitude, greatness, all these things. So basically, when he got to town, we kind of met him at the door and was like, hey, we want to make a record. And he was like, all right, well, I have to clear my schedule out. But he came in and he was just one of us. He just like jumped in, positive attitude. It wouldn't, you know, he was one of those guys that if we did kind of hit a little bit of a wall, he was like, all right, let's go, next one, let's move on. He just, and as opposed to coming with like a pop way of looking at things, which we were a little scared, it was the opposite. He like had Youth and Young Manhood and Aha Shake. He's like, this is what me and my buddies listen to. So he, you know, he found a way to get us to kind of loosen up a little bit, and you know, you develop your skill over the years, and you get better at your craft. But he found a way to kind of let us be loose with that, even though I feel like the songwriting is better on this than it has been in the past. There's not as much of a overthinking musically as we have done at times. I mean, we have some rough plans that are kind of, you know, there's an evolution to it. So it's still happening, but there is gonna be more than just us on stage with can lights. And not to sound like, you know, arrogant, but we are that kind of a band where you could come to the show and it could just be lights and us on stage and we can entertain you. And you can leave there going like, yes, finally, someone just got back to the basics. But I think for us, it's important for us to be creative and to do something that excites us and pushes us a little further. So I think there's gonna be some elements that bring you in and out of the rock and roll show, and at times you have to go like, whoa, this is completely different.
And I think we played so many shows in our career that we're as comfortable on a club stage as we are on an arena stage. So I think for us, that's fun to be able to kind of inject a little bit of that club frantic like funness into the show, because it gives the people that little glimpse into like, oh shit, like that's what it was like in 2004 at a sweaty club, without having to give them a whole show of like, okay, we've grown, now you can play some more stuff.
We're equally comfortable on all stages, but the backstage has to be very nice. Real nice.
You heard that.
Yeah, I think the odds are incredible. I mean, the odds of even making it as a band and being able to support yourself and your family and, you know, be that is insane that we can also do it for so long and stay, you know, slightly relevant or whatever.
And I have a lot of friends that, you know, they don't even speak to their brother or their sister and haven't for many years. So to be able to maintain a relationship as a family while also having this other thing that's, you know, as fun as it is and as exciting, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of stressful situations, a lot of travel, and so in a way, we are each other's support system while also being the reason why we can't wait to get home and get away from each other. But we know at the end of the day that we have the best life. This is what we dreamed of, and we're actually doing it. And we actually still enjoy doing it, which is crazy. I don't know anything else that can give you that kind of fulfillment. Because even if you're the greatest athlete, you've got such a short window. And you know, you see bands like the Stones and U2 and bands out there still doing it that let us know, like, if we want to, we can do it for a long time.